This is a letter to an emotional wounded friend, and it's called Trauma, Psychological Pain, Self Destructiveness, and Healing. 1. You need to acknowledge you were wounded physically, emotionally, sexually, linguistically, financially, vocationally, etc. by several sick people in your life, some of them narcissistic and perverted, some of them just ignorant and egotistic. They took advantage of your good spirit and your innocence, creating emotional consequences for the future. 2. This violence led to the disconnection between your own self needs, wants, and uniqueness to the acceptance of a way imposed by the caretakers using force, coercion, humiliation, shame, guilt, etc., by making you believe you are lazy, unintelligent, unimportant, useless, good for nothing, by pushing fear and distrust in yourself and others, creating a human with identity issues, insecurities, self doubts, who needs to develop defense mechanisms to cope with the irrational and traumatic environment you have to endure as a child and adolescent. 3. This basic acknowledgement of being abused will help you to recognize patterns of behavior, yours and of others, including actual self-destructiveness patterns. For example, it's hard for you to distinguish erotic love from filial love or plain emotional manipulation. Since this abuse is a betrayal of children's natural expectations of care and acceptance from the family, the child loses ground with his natural reality, and is replaced by a perspective of the abuser or abusers. That perspective is defended by the abused in life as if it were natural and not artificially created by trauma. In this way, the victim diminishes his/her anxiety by denying his/her own feelings. The problem is that by not acknowledging these his/her feelings, by repressing them, the victim is going to get depressed, reactivating the circle of abuse and trauma. So they get back and forward when they try to make a decision. 4. Because of those wounds, you tend to see abusers deep inside unconsciously as right and you as wrong. This is called codependency. Therefore, accepting and validating abusers and creating for yourself feelings of shame and guilt for confronting them or even for not listening to them is a sign of being emotionally manipulated and personally neglected. 5. It is important to be aware of patterns and cycles to minimize them and change them, since your true self is lurking to be in jurisdiction of your feelings and life, but you are not used to do it. So you doubt yourself and anybody who sees your true self as well. Then you push them away and you end up anxious or depressed for not recognizing them in their ontological value, repeating the vicious circle once again. Learn how to see these patterns and disable them. There is a simple way to do it, but it requires discipline. 7. You need to be aware, accept, and understand you were systematically played and programmed by unhealthy adults from home, school, work, and society at large. But especially the effects are more pervasive when you were abused and traumatized under 5 years old. You also should be aware that this is the main reason you have problems to commit and to accept intimacy as a natural way of being in a relationship. 8. You also should be aware that by negating the real self, unconsciously and because of the mental programming, since you are an attractive woman, your body, not yourself, became the main source of erotic attraction for socialized men, and really has been an unconscious way to look for affection for the victim of abuse, that is, as well. This is a false validation, self-destructive, since the body's flesh is only a fragment of who we are, and we are an amalgam of intellect, feelings, meat, and spirituality. In literary terms, this is called metonymy, labeling the whole by the part. We sacrifice our whole being to get some instant gratification that stops for a moment our anxiety and depression. 9. This programming became the backbone of your conscientious behavior, but since this behavior does not represent the wholeness of your true self, your real tastes, preferences, and likes, because it is only the false self created by trauma and abuse, and the imposition of other people's projects in your life and mind, what took your life over. Hence, it shows up in different destructive ways, because it's not possible to eradicate the emotional energy that keeps us alive. In this case, the unconscious defense mechanisms try to help you by protecting you with all tools and tricks, that is, for today's standards of adulthood, outdated. These protectors are stiff and rigid, trying to defend you from pain with their limited strategies, created when you did not have any other resources to defend yourself, when you were a defenseless child. Because of your early abuse, everybody has been telling you what to do, manipulating you, humiliating you, touching up you, raping you, etc. The former repression and direct external psychological destruction of the past was replaced by self-repression in the present, a sort of invisible prison created by the mental program you've got from being captive in a non-nurtured environment. 11. Since we cannot cheat completely ourselves, because deep inside we really know what's going on, our unconscious mind shows up in many ways, in dreams, or by trying to keep us out of danger. The problem with this help is what is mentioned in number 10, the old ways of defense and help, such as anger, denial, deceptions, projections, intellectualizations, etc., are no longer helpful because the situation has changed radically. 12. Therefore, it is necessary to assess reality in the present moment and act accordingly. That is the whole point of any therapy. For achieving that, it's basic to recognize that this present time is completely different than the time when you were helpless and you needed any means to protect yourself. Now, you're an adult. You're getting good information and you need and want to change to embrace your delicate, happy, generous, and creative self.